For the first 12 years of its existence, the appeal of Bitcoin for most people has been largely theoretical. A fixed supply, digital form of money that can't be tampered with by corporations or governments was quickly recognized as valuable by libertarian and free market types. But for the majority of the world, Bitcoin was simply a speculative gamble. Most citizens of first world countries have been slow to recognize the value of Bitcoin because for them over the past 2 decades, managing money has been relatively easy. They have a bank account, complete with a debit card and online banking. While inflation has been slowly eating away at their savings, thanks to technological growth, consumer prices hadn't been rising fast enough for most people to notice. Services like PayPal and Venmo have allowed people to send money quickly and cheaply wherever it needs to go. Even though these companies can track all of our transactions, this isn't a problem because as long as we're not doing anything wrong, we shouldn't have anything to hide. Most people haven't had to worry about their banking services being terminated because that only happens to fringe conspiracy theorists and dangerous criminals. As long as it's not happening to me, everything is okay. This has been the thought process of most people. But that was then and this is now. I firmly believe we are at an inflection point in Western society. The bedrock of our culture, freedom of speech, is not only being attacked, but many people are questioning its very morality. There is a growing number of people who believe the government and/or big corporations should clamp down on misinformation. Regardless of how this may sound in theory, in practice, eliminating misinformation is simply censorship by another name. If Copernicus were alive today, there is no doubt he'd be banned from social media for daring to go against consensus in suggesting that the Earth revolves around the sun. We are seeing unprecedented actions take place in Canada, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has invoked the Emergencies Act for the first time since it was created over 30 years ago. This invocation, which is reserved for only the most dire national emergencies, gives the Canadian federal government nearly unbridled power to crack down on the peaceful demonstrators in Ottawa protesting against vaccine mandates. First, funds being raised for the protesters were seized by centralized crowdfunding platform GoFundMe. Next, the crowdfunding platform GiveSendGo was hacked and the names of the donors leaked to the public. Now Trudeau is vowing, without court order, to freeze the bank accounts of those involved with the protests. It's all about following the money, said Minister of Finance Chrystia Freeland as she announced a broadening of Canada's terrorist financing rules to cover crowdfunding platforms. In other words, the protesters and donors of these protesters have casually been labeled terrorists by the Canadian government. Regardless of how you feel about the protesters' motivations, there can be no question that these recent events mark a turning point in financial sovereignty of the Western world. If the government can order banks to freeze the accounts of anyone suspected of taking part in any events arbitrarily deemed a threat to national security, then nobody's money is safe. If you think that your left-leaning politics will keep you safe from Trudeau's overreach, then just wait until someone of the opposite political persuasion takes power. The precedent has been set. The bar for national emergency has been placed so low that it should come to nobody's surprise when the Emergencies Act is used again in the not-too-distant future. If Bitcoin's value proposition has been fuzzy to you over the past decade, it should now be appearing crystal clear. Bitcoin is the only place where you can be sure that your money is secure. No bank can freeze your account because Bitcoin allows you to be your own bank. No government can restrict payments because Bitcoin payments are immune to censorship. As I talked about in my video breaking down the book, The Sovereign Individual, Western governments will continue to tighten their grip as they sense much of their power slipping away. Unsustainable sovereign debt, rapidly rising inflation, and decaying institutions are destabilizing the foundations of society. Bitcoin serves as a lifeboat for anyone not willing to go down with the ship. Looking back on this moment a decade from now, the latest actions taken by the Canadian government will likely be viewed as the tip of the iceberg, a foreshadowing of events to come.